Hello everybody. This is Kevin Jones. I'm the Executive Director of SACIA. Last week we ran a pro audio webinar, very well attended, very dynamic and engaging discussion. And there were a number of questions that were posted during the presentation that we simply didn't get around to answering. So I thought I would bring the group back together and just have a crack at addressing some of those questions. In terms of the issues that were covered and the people that were participating, a broad spectrum of people working across multiple genres. So I was very excited about that. And also a lot of interest in our professional designations. So I'm certainly looking forward to engaging with everybody as we move forward. Some of the questions that were asked that weren't answered, and I'm going to throw this one out into the ether. And then, Tinus, if you could just kind of direct the questions to various people. But question number one that came up, what advantage is there for radio stations? That was a question that was asked by Johnny from Waterberg Stereo. So does somebody want to pick up on that one? I'm going to leave you, Tinus, to kind of drive the discussion.
Thank you, Kevin. So just quickly, the entire panel didn't make it today because of other commitments and some technical issues. We may see some of them join in as we go along. Otherwise, the panel in front of you is going to try and handle all of these. Right, so let's kick off with what is the advantage for radio stations? In general, I think when we look at the advantages we talk about, it is industry-wide. It's across the board. So specific industries may find very specific benefits. If I look at the live events industry and we look at the safety aspects around that, sort of putting measures in place by virtue of designations help overcome the challenges that they face in that sector in particular. So very, very helpful tool in that respect. From the radio station perspective, like I said, same as for the rest of the industry, it raises the bar, it brings the profession into a professional realm so that we can all be treated and treat ourselves as professionals, but most importantly, have our experience showcased with professional designations, which, as we discussed in our webinar, is peer-reviewed to a large extent. And all the benefits that come with that. Is there anybody that would like to follow up on that one?
I think just qualitatively, I mean, if we're primarily talking people within our confines, and if we've got competent staff working within the radio station, it's going to uplift the profile of the radio station, and I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do. You know, it's just a general upliftment across the boards technically.
Correct, and that's why I say I think the benefit is across the entire industry, more or less the same. That's raising the bar, and also getting to a place where you ensure that the quality of people that are working for you, especially if you're looking to employ, is more easily assured, because the designation tells you that somebody is actually capable of doing the job. Back to the example that I've given during the webinar of taking a CV with just normal references, employing somebody on the basis of that, just to find out that they still can't do the job. The professional designation helps to rule out a bit of that. Right, so the next one is, next question. Are there jobs?
Have you got them? Are there jobs that you could be disqualified from? Have you got the questions there, Tinus?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Are there jobs that you could be disqualified from without accreditation from, and this one is specifically pointing at the TPSA, but generally speaking, SACIA, in other words, if you don't hold a professional designation, could you be disqualified from doing a particular job? Mark, I'm going to bet that one your way.
Well, it's quite interesting for me because I think the question was posed by somebody that works with me, and my quick answer would be he gets to keep his job, but that would be a bit rude and a bit negative. I think really what we're sitting with is a chicken and egg situation here. You know, until we've got people that are qualified in numbers, it's very difficult for us to go back to the employers and say, you know, we need you to now set these as levels that would be acceptable to you in terms of your employment structures. I think the most exciting part for me with all the work that we've done on the TLE and just working with SACIA, as a company, we've been replying to certain tenders recently where one of the stipulations is that technicians on the site doing the work have to be certified and approved by SACIA. So definitely it's getting out there. And I think that's really where we're starting from. We need to create a base where everybody acknowledges that this certification exists. And by that, then the guys are guaranteed a standard of the staff they're employing. And then it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Unfortunately, at the moment where we're sitting is that we need people to come on board and actually get those qualifications. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the short answer is at the moment, not really.
Yeah.
The more detailed answer where it is that we're trying to get the industry to go is absolutely yes, in the sense that once employers specify a designation for a particular job, you need to hold that in order to perform that function, which also has the quality assurance angle added to that.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to pitch in on that one?
I think like Mark says, I mean, I think for companies and even companies like ourselves, going through, having to individually go through certain people, I mean, if you know it's under one group and one banner, it makes it so much easier for companies to recognize that that's the way forward. So I couldn't agree more. I think that is the way to do it.
Precisely. Fantastic. Thank you, Quentin. All right. So our next question, it's a student-related question around experience. It's like, how do students gain the required experience to meet the designation requirements? This is obviously that age-old scenario where I need experience to be able to have the experience to do the job, but nobody's willing to give me the job to gain the experience. Right. Anybody want to pick up on that one?
Yeah, perhaps I can pick up on that one. I was hoping that either Christo or Mpo would be joining us. But since they're not here, I think that the issue is that one of the requirements that we have for our designated members is that they need to participate in a program of continuing professional development. And one of the ways that you can gain CPD points is through providing or acting as a mentor to young people that are starting out in their career. And I think that what we're trying to do is to introduce a number of initiatives that allow us as an association to engage with young people. So we already have on-campus chapters at a number of universities. We want to engage with young people and then provide them with guidance as they develop throughout their career. And so we do have a program that allows us to include student members within the association. We charge a ridiculously low membership fee. I think it's 100 Rand a year plus VAT for
Yes.
student members. And the idea is to then partner them with a more experienced industry professional who would act as their guide and provide them with insights as they develop throughout their career. So youth development is a key part of what we're trying to do. Absolutely critical to the future of SACIA is to engage with young people.
100%. That is our future. And I'm somehow going to lead this one into the next question, because to me the two are tied and related. Where the next question asks, what is the benefit of joining SACIA for a student, if I can paraphrase? And how does the requirements apply to me as a student while I still have little or no real world experience? And that's precisely it. Unfortunately, to gain, for instance, associate level membership, you have to meet the criteria, and one of the criteria has an experience component to it. But if you've been a student member and you slot in with our both mentorship and internship programs, you will be able to gain that experience through those. In other words, grow within the industry under the mentorship and guiding eye of experienced people doing the work, and then get the exposure within SACIA memberships, other members partaking in those programs, and in that way gain the necessary experience that we can then apply to award the designation. At the end of the day, the designation has got to, you've got to fulfill the criteria. Otherwise, the designation doesn't mean jack. It will not fulfill what we're trying for it to do in the industry if we just hand it out like candy. But the benefit of joining SACIA then would be to partake in those programs that we'll be putting on. Anybody else?
I think the other advantage we offer is just that interaction with people that have the ability to supply that further knowledge. I think, Tina's, by joining the organization, you're immediately part and parcel of something that's a far bigger picture. And you are part of an association where people are willing to give up their time, like we're doing now, and to pass that information on. So become
Correct.
part of it, get access to it, or don't become part of it and don't get the access. I think that's in a nutshell.
And it's a very interesting thing. We're already seeing this with the little bit that we've done within this pro audio environment that we're putting together. Stimulating the conversation is already creating an environment where I can see the world and the energy changing just among our own. So yeah, exactly. Bring the like-minded people together and you make life easier in that respect. Did I hear somebody trying to chip in there?
You didn't, but I could. Quinton was saying before we started recording, he made a chirp about somebody had suggested to him that what we were trying to build was an old boys club, and I'm not sure that that's true at all. But in reality, I think what we're trying to do is to bring in youngsters and fresh energy, so that any assertion that we are an old boys club is kind of thrown out the window as soon as possible.
Oh, I think besides myself and JP, I think we will make sure we're not in the old boys club. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Everybody just wants to see the fresh faces. They want. I think it's someone that's more relatable too. I guess some people just find they can relate more, and that's the main thing. We need to break that stigma of an old boys club, and I definitely said I don't qualify myself as an old boy, so I'm there always to speak to people about things.
I've seen the grey on your beard there, Quinton.
Yeah, sure.
And just on that note, I think it is important that the experience is brought into play. So we want the youngsters in, we want that energy, but by the same token, those of us that are a bit older, we're trying to hand over the baton, so to speak, by guiding and handing over some of the experience that we've gained. You know what? If I could share some of what I've learned in my 3-odd decades in the game with youngsters, it means their path to learning and finding out those things are shorter than mine. If we get that right, we will constantly raise the bar. If every generation has to learn everything from scratch in a manner that our older generation pretty much had to, you're always going to bat off square one. What's the point? We will not get to improve the industry and raise the bar. For me, the ideal is anybody that I manage to train, to teach, to mentor, must ultimately reach a place where they take it further than I ever have. That's the bottom line for me.
If I can add to that, personally, I think that knowledge is power, and I wouldn't join a group of any sort if there wasn't people that was experienced in the group. There's no point in it. Imagine there was a group of youngsters that came together and said, let's learn from each other, but you only have 5 years of experience rolling up cables, whereas now there's a place where youngsters can interact with people that are literally veterans in the industry, and can grow from them and learn from them at not that big of a cost. I don't think it's a big cost to put in. So yeah.
Oh, JP, I couldn't have said that better myself. Thank you very much. Quinton, a question coming your way is again along the lines of internship. along the lines of company owners, there's this idea that the industry is saying that the youngsters are going to take away the job
Tara.
from the veterans. I see Tara has joined us. Fantastic. And the suggestion then being made that companies take in interns for a couple of months before choosing whether or not to employ them full time. Just your take on that one, please.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, internship has always been a bit of a talk around the industry. I think the main thing is that we've all received the emails of people, of youngsters coming from colleges and various other experiences coming into to want to do and work with companies. I'm sure Mark can also elaborate on that. It just does get tricky in terms of bringing people in and youngsters in terms of how you structure the internship. But we more than anything would love youngsters to come in, but it needs to be on a structured basis, and that's probably where we feel that SACIA has probably got a good involvement in it, because it'd be better if we actually had a point where we could come in from one place than having people from different areas and different just lots of emails coming in of CVs of people wanting to do stuff. It gets tricky, and I'll be first to admit also we just go through the emails and you ignore certain things, and you know, I've been in that scenario also where I've sent emails when I was as a youngster to companies, and you probably feel when you see these youngsters are trying to try and enter in the industry, but it's difficult. But we need a structure, and I think as a SACIA organization, trying to bring an internship in place would probably be one of the better things to do, because that gives more structure for companies to go to one source than having to just try and randomly pick people or a reference from someone. I'm just going point on the veterans and people feeling that a youngster is going to take the work away from a veteran. Like I said before, if there's any veteran out there who feels that they feel threatened by a youngster, I would be more worried about your skill set than if you're worried about what the youngster is going to take that away from you. You need to have the confidence to understand that we're here to train the youngsters coming through, and like JP said, we've got the knowledge, we've got the experience. We should have the confidence to know to train the youngsters coming through. So that should never be never taken lightly. I mean, if you've got the experience, you need to train the guys, and the best way is through the internship. But we do need structure in terms of internship. But I know there is a lot of companies that would be very willing to take on youngsters for when it comes to that. Mark,
one of the saddest things for me is to see very experienced people retire, and together with the retirement, we actually lose those expertise out of the industry in one foul swoop. Whereas if they had the opportunity in their lifetime to rub shoulders with youngsters and transfer some of that knowledge, that's how we grow in industry.
Exactly.
I think the most telling was the idea of it working through a central body. As somebody who's taken on interns in the past, it becomes an HR nightmare. And if it's something that's being correctly routed and fed through an organization like SACIA, to me, then it adds a massive value to the whole process. And I think a lot more companies like ourselves would be open to it. But it's just literally to avoid that administrative hassle. We're all in business to try and keep our companies running. And unfortunately, a byproduct of that is taking on, it's not a priority to take on interns, although we've got the resources to do it. And if it was going through a SACIA, I think it would be a superb idea. Just adding to Kevin's workload.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Indeed, and I think for smaller companies, the reality is it's actually quite difficult to do. When I talk to the smaller guys who can basically barely afford to take on one intern, our work environment and the legislative framework within which we have to work actually makes it pretty difficult to create those opportunities without unnecessarily creating problems for yourself. So yeah, if we can start managing that in a professional manner and steer it so that it's easy to administer, easy to implement, that would be a big plus all around. And Mark, while I have you on the line for that one, the next question is actually coming your way, and that's similar to the student question earlier about experience, except this is now, if you already have a designation, The question is, how is it expected of you to move higher up the ranks if you only ever get to perform, say, at an associate level jobs? How do you gain the experience to make it up the ranks?
This was a discussion previously Quentin and I had, so I'm also going to bat it over to, we'll share this one, I think. Primarily, it's what we were describing earlier, is the fact it's the exposure to people who are possibly higher up the chain. You know, you're not only going to get stuck at that level, you're going to be working with people that are on higher levels than you. And, you know, without that exposure, you're never going to achieve it. And what we're offering is a platform where you can get that exposure to the people who can help you advance. And I think fundamentally that's what it is. It's like any other progress in any trade, is you're going to learn from the people above you, and you can only learn from the people above you when you're exposed to it and actually working with them. So it's, you know, what feeds what, I think, is the primary thing there. Sorry, Quentin, I mean, you were very eloquent on this earlier.
No, I was just saying, in terms of the
pressure.
As a youngster, I mean, we've all been through it. I've been through it also. I mean, youngsters always have this thing that, you know, you after a few years or 2 years, you feel that you need to progress. I think one needs to understand, and this has been a world phenomenon. I've experienced it with A2s in abroad, also in the UK. I mean, one has to do your time. You have to understand, as a youngster, you have to do your time in the industry. You're not suddenly just going to jump after 2 years in front of a console and start mixing. You need to understand, as an audio assistant, you know, for example, in my industry, you need to do your time, and that's at least 5 years. We expect you to be, because you cannot understand how to mix a show if you don't know how to plug in a microphone correctly, or what's going on in the field. So if you don't understand the basics in the field, how are you expected to understand what's going on at the final output? So we need the guys to understand that if you're working at the associate level, you need to do your time. It's going to be a few years, but my rule of thumb, and I was taught by a senior engineer many years ago, was that most times after 5 years, you should be progressing. If you're not, you either have to question yourself or your company that you're at. You must know that if your company's not allowing you to move further, then there is probably a problem. But it's also having the right mentality. You need to understand that you're not going to it's not an opportunity that it's your right, it's you have to earn it. And if you don't earn it as a youngster, you're not going to get that opportunity. And if you have the right mindset, the right people will see you, and you will improve your skill set, and you will become a professional instead of an associate.
And just to tie in with that, Quentin, you get to a place where people don't understand that sitting in that A1 position, you're not just the mixer of the show, you're actually the conductor of absolutely everything that happens below you. And if you don't know the basics about cabling, routing, plugging mics, those sort of things, you often have to do the problem solving while doing the mixing. So you have to direct your assistants in a particular way to get things done. And I just want to add into that, as an A1, I slowly grow in confidence in my A2 to the point where at some point I'll actually let him take my chair and I'll take his, so that under my guidance, he can mix a show in the A1 seat, if you will, not yet quite carrying the badge. But if things go horribly wrong, I'm there to grab all the things, if you know what I mean. And that's also how you gain that experience, being given those opportunities when the time is right. But that only happens if you've served your time, so to speak. Tara, do you perhaps have an input on that one?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, there've been many people in my career that have shared their inside knowledge with me, whether it be guidance in my audio, when I've changed disciplines, because I've changed disciplines many times, from theatre to broadcast and back to location. So they've guided me in the creative industry, but as well as in my business sense. And I can honestly say, without that guidance and those mentors, my career path would have been very different, and my growth in my career and in my disciplines would have been very different. So I think the goal for students at KIA members would be to gain knowledge and experience in the industry in the form of mentorships and internships, and to build long-lasting relationships right from when they are a student all the way through their career. Because I think that was a problem for me, is that I came straight out of college a little bit bewildered, not really having any relationships and not really knowing where to go. And I think if a student can start building these relationships in their final years of their studies, and carry those relationships all the way through their careers, having someone to mentor them, having internships, having people to look up to for advice and for inside knowledge in the industry, that would really change their career paths and their growth in their career paths.
Yeah, so SACIA most definitely gives us exposure to all of those avenues, which would otherwise be very, very difficult to have access to. You know, you're part of a grouping of like-minded professionals.
Definitely.
Thank you very much for that, Tara. Next one says, or the question is asked, how do we promote this whole idea among commercial agencies, especially for radio and TV? And how do we make them aware of the pro audio world? It's not a simple thing. I think this is a challenge that we've seen within SACIA already. It is, at the end of the day, the idea of critical mass. It's up to us as members to promote what we stand for and how this works, and getting others to understand the benefits, which really only works once everybody starts to play the game. So from a SACIA perspective, we are actually planning, the new board's planning on marketing SACIA, so to speak, specifically at bigger companies, production companies, broadcasters. That plan is still going to be formulated at board level for implementation later on. So in some way, I guess from my point, the answer is we're still working on that. But I think it's every individual member's responsibility to some extent to advocate what we stand for. Anybody else want to pitch in on that one?
Perhaps just to say that, you know, one of the things that we have, if you have a look at the broad SACIA structure, you know, not only the Pro Audio Council, but also the TPSA, the Broadcast Industry Group, the Council of Event Professionals, and so it goes on. You know, we have a number of different groups within SACIA, and I think that part of the value that we are able to bring to the Pro Audio Council is the interaction between industry professionals in the various groups. So it's not just that you're a Pro Audio, a member of the Pro Audio group, you also be a member of the TPSA or the Broadcast Industry Group, and it's that shared collaboration. So when we talk about marketing it, yes, of course, we need to market more effectively. But because there are people in multiple groups all talking about a shared commitment to the adoption of professional standards and ethical business practices, we're all singing off the same hymn sheet, and we're all addressing the same community with the same message. So I think that.
While I have you chirping on the next one, we can somewhat tackle the very next question, which is that whole idea of, so what does the association do to be recognized within the country? And I think just off the bat, quickly, being SACIA recognized does a lot for that. But it's exactly what you've referred to now that will gain that broader recognition within the country and even Africa, not just South Africa, but Southern Africa.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact is that we are the only SACIA recognized professional body in this space. Everybody that earns a designation is listed on the National Learners Registered Database. All of our designations are listed on the National Qualifications Framework. So there is formal recognition for the skill and competence of industry professionals. And that manifests itself in many ways. So I'm going to throw this over to Mark, because I remember he and I had a conversation a couple of years ago. I can see him saying, "Oh shit, what did I say?"
No,
actually, Mark and I had a conversation a while ago, and I think you were doing some work on the FIFA stadiums in Qatar.
Yeah.
And before they would allow you to work, you had to send them a copy of your qualifications and competencies. And I think you said to me that without the SACIA certificate, you would probably not have been able to work in that region.
Yeah, in fact, it wouldn't even be a probably, it would have been a definitely, we wouldn't have been able to work there. You know,
Right.
we were recognized by the, I mean, we were recognized by the Supreme Committee for our previous expertise with all the stadiums we've done. But they needed some form of formal qualification. And, you know, so turning that around saying with 40 years of building stadium sound systems wasn't enough. It had to have something else that backed it. And literally that's what it was. And our SACIA certification got us through that phase, for which I'm thankful, Kevin. Thank you. But no, it's a reality. So it's not just within SA, it's across the board. You know, we're proud of our association with SACIA and we push it forward. You know, we work in Ethiopia, we work in Kenya, we work throughout Africa, and obviously now up into the Middle East. And it's something that's valid, and we can present it as part and parcel of our proposals moving forward.
Yep.
So, and I think more, you know, within SACIA, the more we promote that, I think that helps everybody across the boards in terms of just making it more recognised internally in SA that it is more than just a bit of paper that works in Johannesburg or Cape Town or whatever. You know, it's got huge validity.
Fantastic.
Is that what we discussed, Kevin? Because it's
Yeah, no, that's very good. Absolutely.
okay. Just checking.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. All right. The next one was actually a question I was going to bat in Christo's way, but he couldn't join us today. The question is, in short, what is the point of having spent 3 years studying for a degree or a diploma if I could simply follow through with a mentorship program? Now, the reality behind that is it's not quite that simple. And in today's day and age, getting on a mentorship program without a qualification is actually going to be a bit of a challenge. For starters, getting your degree or your diploma is that foot in the door with the base knowledge that is required to understand what is expected within the workplace. It is the mentorship program or the internship program, whatever it is you then form part of, which prepares you better for actually being able to deliver, because there is a lot of truth in people coming out of technicons and colleges not ready to perform, but they have the underlying knowledge. By the same token, somebody who's had absolutely no formal education can make it in the industry, but that's a very long road because you will have to learn everything from scratch from somebody. Getting into that position where you have the ability to learn it from somebody when there's others standing in the queue with a degree or a diploma, that's a challenge. Go back to the time when we started, the old fogies, there weren't people with degrees and diplomas. So it was easier. It was tough still, but easier because everybody was playing off that wicket. Today, not the same case. Anybody else want to pitch in on that one?
I think you covered that.
Cool. Moving swiftly along then. Is it possible that the industry is oversaturated with graduates who have no experience? Wow. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You come out of technicon or college, you have an education. If you were really lucky, within that period, you may have spent some time being exposed to post-productions. Very often, some productions end up using students to help out. You know, when you do the oppie copies and some of these live events, some of the colleges and technicons students have the privilege of being involved in being stagehands and getting to see how these things work. But it's not enough to be recognized as industry professionals in that sense. Whether or not the industry is saturated with them is a different question. There's definitely a lot of them out. From what I can see, a lot of people do the education, do the studies, get their degree or their diploma, and actually end up using it within their own realm, either home production or something like that. There is a good portion of those that spill over into the professional industry trying to find work. Whether that's an oversaturation, that's hard for me to judge. I do get a lot of people asking for opportunities, knocking on my door, but I suspect they are the same ones knocking on everybody else's door. Anybody in this group that has a JP?
If I could add to that, a few years ago, I was mixing a gospel crusade sort of thing in Cape Town, and one of the guys that was helping me on stage was a college graduate. He just finished college, and he was busy patching the lines onto the stage box. And as he was patching, he just ended up standing with 2 connectors in his hand, and he completely froze, like he was gone.
That's not, yeah.
And I went to him and I asked him, how's it, man? What's wrong? He's like, I'm frozen. I don't know what I'm doing. And he had a patch list in front of him. So I was like, okay, you just need to breathe now, you know. And from then, that's when I realized that with all the book knowledge that you have,
Reality is overwhelming.
Exactly. You need to learn how to apply your knowledge. You need to learn how to how to apply it, and then gain experience through that and build up your confidence in doing that. And so as soon as these guys come out, it's our job as the seniors on site to give them that, to give them opportunity to make mistakes, but then follow them to teach them how to fix it. And that's why a lot of guys don't have experience, is because we don't have the patience with them to give them that space to learn in. Yeah.
If I could just jump in there, Tinas.
Yes, please.
So I think what JP just said absolutely demonstrates the difference between an academic qualification and a professional designation. An academic qualification awarded by university primarily on academic knowledge. Admittedly, many universities of technology have work integrated learning incorporated into their curriculum. But in order to earn a professional designation, you need both the qualification and the relevant work experience. One without the other does not allow you to earn a designation. So it's about finding that balance between kind of academic knowledge and you know, kind of textbook learning and the ability to apply that knowledge in a real live workspace. That's what it takes to earn a professional designation.
Indeed, and we're almost at the end. 3 more to go. Our third last question: why can't there be a process as in schools where there's recognition for prior learning? I've done events for 20 years. Why must I go through a lengthy process to prove my worth, so to speak, when my body of work can prove this? JP, I'm going to bat that one your way, and anybody else that wants to pitch in there, please do.
So I know the guy that asked that question very well. He's a friend of mine from Cape Town. So personally, I've been in the industry now, rolling up cables and pushing boxes for 18 years. And like I said in the last meeting, that I didn't have the opportunity to study. So I really wanted to have a sort of qualification behind my name. And as I was looking, exactly, and as I was looking through the different options, SACIA and TPSA seemed to be the most relevant for what I do, and it was actually most directed to what I do. So there is a process like RPL, which is definitely what SACIA and TPSA is doing. I have the TLE designation based on my RPL, and so and then from there, why must I do a lengthy process? It's not that long. You just need to go through it, but it's not that long. If there's anybody else who wants that.
Put some effort in, make it happen. The benefits in the long run is real, and it takes a little bit of time, and you have to jump around getting all the paperwork together, and maybe even do a little bit of studying, but it's not like it weeks and months worth of work to get there. Indeed.
But sorry, if I may add on that, I think what's being missed there is also the point, and I'm going to go back to the fact that it's an association of working with, even if it's a peer-to-peer network, if you can't learn from your peers and gain some added value, you know, that's what we're aiming for here. And as much as he's going to have his own little world that he's working in, we give the opportunity to broaden that and to gain more knowledge and to gain that greater experience. And then I also know him, so I'll give him a kick next time I see him. So it's fine.
All right, I'm going to just swap the last two questions around and leave the SACIA question for closing. The second last question then is, what is the association doing about the so-called fly-by-night schools? And then a little note, by the way, I used to work with Tara, so you probably know this individual. Kevin, I think I'm going to bet that one your way.
Ooh.
The fly-by-night idea. What does a professional body do to take care of fly-by-night? And this one is in particular pointed at schools. And we do have a SACIA mandate to work with the education sector.
Absolutely. So in terms of the National Qualifications Framework Act, which is the act that defines our role and responsibilities as a professional body, we have a mandate to work with the quality councils that are responsible for registering schools. And so when the question is, what is the Audio Society doing? I think they mean us to stop so-called fly-by-night schools. Actually, stopping the schools is part of the responsibility of SACIA. And so they have been going around and they've identified a number of schools that are awarding diplomas and degrees and certificates of competence that are not listed on the National Qualifications Framework. And to a large extent, those schools have been shut down. In terms of continuing professional development, we're the body that licenses CPD training. And so we work very closely with independent training providers to ensure that their training programs are aligned with international best practice. So good example there would be ProSound have their sound school. You know, it's delivered by people that are competent, that are qualified, that are experienced, and so you know, we would put a tick next to that, and other schools and short training programs that are delivered within the industry. One of the things we need to do is to create more opportunities for continuing professional development, because we need each of our members to embrace a commitment to lifelong learning. And of course, you learn on the job, you learn by doing, but we absolutely need to create more opportunities for learning to take place on an informal basis as well, and that's why we have such a big focus on mentorship. But you know, I know we were previously we had a number of conversations with people working in the OB space. Particularly when Nick Bontes and Cosmos Shabalala were working closely within our broadcast council. And we were very actively pursuing opportunities that would allow us to encourage more training to take place. Yeah, I don't think I need to expand on that one any further.
Indeed, and I would just like to close on that one and say, I think from our perspective, it's about educating our members and our members educating others. It's quite simple. If you look at what a supposed educational facility offers, is what they have or what they call a diploma registered. Does it actually reflect on the SACIA framework? If it doesn't, they're not for real, bro. You're paying money for nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I think as a student, it's your responsibility before you enroll to do your research on the course. And like you say, check that it is registered. I know my first year of studies, I completed the whole year at a college that I won't name. Don't know if it still exists, but the course was not accredited. The college wasn't even accredited. And a whole group of us then found out. I mean, we learned some stuff about audio, and yes, but it was not enough. It wasn't very relevant. It wasn't all correct, and most of us eventually moved on to go and carry on studying at Academy of Sound Engineers. which is registered. But the qualification we all got from there was not relevant or registered at all. And had we done our research as students before we enrolled, we would have known that. So I think you need to take your destiny into your own hands. The onus is on you. It's your money you're spending. It's your time you're spending. You need to be responsible for that.
Just a closing note on that one. Something I do from within my business is offer final, guys that are matric, guys and girls that are studying matric, finishing school. I afford them the opportunity to come spend some time during their holidays with us for a day or two, even a week, if they can handle it, just to come see if this is really what they want to do before they go spend serious money on getting an education in that direction. And interestingly enough, a lot of them will come sit with me and within a day go, hell no, I'm not signing up for this, or wow, I didn't even know this existed, because they may have been interested in the classic old DJ angle, which a lot of youngsters do. Come sit down, see what we do in post or location or whatever the case may be, and thereby formulating a better idea of in which direction to go. And then get advice from the people that's in the industry, because they'll be able to tell you whether or not that little school around the corner actually delivers anything or not.
I don't know if I can just step in onto that.
Yeah, yes, please, Quentin.
So this is just an example from my side also. I mean, like most youngsters, I mean, I guess we can say most guys, when they come around, they also not too sure what they want to do. I think everybody wants to be a DJ, or they want to mix the best bands that they can. We all wanted to do that. And we all got to that point where we thought, but with a little bit of guidance, and the same in my career also, where I also wanted to do music, going to a recording studio and stuff. I then suddenly saw this thing in terms of OBs. I had no idea what that was until someone said, why didn't you come have a look? And I had a look, and one had to see what there is, and to actually realize that there was an opportunity. And one of the questions, one of the things that I was told when I was younger was that, ask yourself, do you know anyone else where you come from that does what you do right now? And that was the main thing, to become a specialist in what one does. I mean, and it's, as a youngster, you're not going to suddenly know off the bat that what you're going to do. It takes a lot, because you're going to have to do the basics first and understand where you're coming from. But it normally takes a few years to understand where you want to really go into. And that's probably where this mentorship would work, where you could have a feel of where you really want to be. I know obviously there's different places that offer these things, but I think most guys, when they start off, don't really know until they've experienced the different industries. And I think they need to experience that just to see what is out there.
And during your career, chances are you're going to take several paths. I'm pretty sure most of us in this panel have done that already. I myself started as a traveling musician, front of house, and then slowly made my way through location, audio, and eventually settled OBs. And then for the most part these days, audio post. So you do get to move around and find the spot where you are most comfortable in. Anybody else on that one?
Just a comment. So, perhaps yes, once lockdown is over, maybe what we can do is organise some, I'm not sure an open day is the right description, but create an opportunity for people that are interested in audio in an outside broadcast environment. Actually arrange to open up an OB van, and Quentin can deliver a little tour around the van and let people know what it is that's happening. Mark can do the same in a theatre or a stadium environment. You can do the same in a post environment. JP can do the same, and so it goes on. Maybe Tara can do a little tour around a film set, and so it goes on, because everybody works in a different environment. So
absolutely,
just knowledge in that kind of way.
Brilliant idea. At this point, we're getting close to wrapping up. So my first note here is just thank you to absolutely everybody that did make it today. Unfortunately, the others that couldn't, either work commitment, maybe some technical issues, you never know. So thanks, guys and girls, very much for partaking. I think this went down fantastically. And then Kevin, for you as the sort of wrap up, and in closing, the last one, how to join SACIA and what are the membership fees? And this is not a this was a real question. We didn't stick that in at the end, although we probably would have if it didn't come up. Kevin, all yours.
So I think what I'll do is I'll link the membership form down in the video description. But actually, we've got some really good deals on at the moment. For an individual member, you would normally pay a joining fee, a once-off joining fee, and during the lockdown, we've eliminated the joining fee. Annual membership fee of 500 Rand, which we cut in half. The membership fee is 250 Rand. Where did that feedback come from? Disappeared all of a sudden. So yeah, we've cut our membership fees in half, 250 Rand a year for an individual membership plus VAT. And then on top of that, there are certification fees, and those vary according to the designation that you hold. And of course, we're still in the process of developing the Pro AV, the Pro Audio designation. But again, you know, they're not particularly onerous. Our professional designation fee for the TLE professional is 1,800 Rand a year. So yeah, our fees are by the standards set by professional bodies. Our fees are relatively low.
And I think just make a mention of our student level, which is not available on the website at present.
But as I said earlier, you know, it's 100, well, including VAT, 115 Rand a year. So I'll link in the student membership form in the video description as well, so that anybody that is a student that wants to join up is able to do so.
Excellent. All right.
Okay.
We can wrap this one up.
No other questions. Okay. Thank you very much to everybody, and let us see how we go. Do I have a final slide? I think I probably do. Oh yes. Once again, I'm saying if you have any questions, you can contact Tennis. His SACIA email address, tennis@sacia.org.za, and I've put his mobile number up on the screen as well. So thanks very much to everybody, and I look forward to hearing from you. Cheerio.
Fantastic.
Sure.
Sure.
I've got to run.